On today's show, we interview the best-selling author Matt Wallaert about how to change your behavior and the behavior of others. We talk about how to get chronically late people to be on time consistently and why he insists on automating everything. Who's Matt Wallaert? Well, Matt Wallaert is the Chief Behavioral Officer for a company called Clover Health.
This is super fun.
I think we got your message out.
I would come back anytime.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes. Matt Wallaert, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. Dr. Z and I, we recognize that you're kind of a big deal, and we have very little time with you today. And so I want to get right into the super hot questions. So question number 1, my friend. As a chief behavioral officer, do you enjoy what you do? Is it fun? Do you have a lot of fun being a chief behavioral officer? And is it a career that you actually wanted to be growing up? I mean, did you want to be a chief behavioral officer?
I mean, it is totally fascinating and not at all where I sort of expected. I'm a first-generation college kid from rural Oregon. You know, I still have a big belt buckle and cowboy boots, right? Like, I did not at all. You know, I as a psychologist, it's funny to me because, you know, growing up, psychology is taught to Americans through media, right? So we have this, you know, we watch The Sopranos and we think that's what psychology is. It's 2 people facing off in chairs doing talk therapy. And so when I went to college, that was very much my vision of psychology. And then I sort of fell into the fact that there was this whole other part of psychology that was about sort of groups of people and how everyday people interact with the world. Now, it's still a science, right? Same sort of scientific methods, same lab science, same experimentation emphasis, but on sort of how do we change behavior as a whole. And I just got super addicted to that and super passionate about it because, you know, I was brought up by these parents who really said, you know, my dad said, I never had a chance to go to school. You guys are my chance to change the world. And so this is like a scientific way of going out and changing the world. And we can figure out, you know, you can be on sort of the dark side of that. You can, you know, sell hamburgers and sugary drinks and those sorts of things. You can go into marketing. Or you can be on sort of the light side of that as a behavioral scientist and try and figure out, like, how do we go use this science to help people lead healthier, happier lives? And I've spent the last 15 years being super lucky getting to do that work.
And your official title now, you're the is it CMO? You said CMO?
CBO, Chief Behavioral Officer.
Okay.
So I have a team here at Clover that has it's a combination of project managers, quantitative scientists, right? So people who look at data, and qualitative scientists, people who look and talk directly to our members. And between that group of folks, we figure out interventions to change people's behavior, which for us as a health insurance company mostly are around sort of health behaviors. How do we help people, you know, stay engaged in their community, stay active with their minds, you know, sort of eat healthy, exercise.
Matt, if you could change the behavior of one thing in your peeps, wow. If you could change, what's top of your list? If you could change the behavior of one thing, I give you a magic wand. You could go, here you go, Matt.
Of America at large, or you're saying of whose behavior can change?
Group. He's the CBO of his group, of the Clover group, of the cats he's hurting.
I'd change nothing there. They're great.
I mean, what would you change? What's the number one behavior thing you'd like to change for people's health?
Let's define my herd of cats first, right? So Medicare Advantage. That means anybody who qualifies for Medicare qualifies for Medicare Advantage. So that's folks who are disabled, but the primary market is over 65. So I'm looking at a market of older adults.
Okay.
And if I could wave my magic wand,
there you go,
and change one thing about the lives of older adults in America, it would be connecting them with each other, right? So.
Oh, well, I was expecting something a lot sexier than that. I don't know, Matt. I was just really, you want to give it a second stab? Because I was really kind of fired up that you're going to say
something nefarious.
Don't eat plutonium or something. I don't know, you know, but
something nefarious. Well, tell us about this.
Getting them all to talk to each other is about as nefarious as I get. I mean, the majority of older adults in America live in a very sort of lonely environment.
Wow, didn't realize that.
Huge sort of untalked about problem. And so if I could get them out, engaged in the world, like I have an almost 4-year-old. I want my almost 4-year-old to see more older adults. They're invisible in our society. They're in apartment buildings or houses, sort of isolated from the rest of the world. I want to get them engaged. That would be huge. I want my kids to see them.
I would like, if I could make one change in the senior population, I would like to stop Facebooking about Trump or Obama. I would just like to. There's a certain age you get to, like what, mid-70s, where you're like,
it should start.
I'm just going to let it fly.
It should. Facebook should be just outlawed.
People will post. If you're over 75, I see a lot of messages where it'll say, I heard that Obama worked directly with, the Rothschilds to team up with the Antichrist to somehow work with Trump and the Russians, and you're like, what are you saying?
Well, here's a phenomenon.
Where are you getting this information?
And Matt could probably confirm this, but here's a phenomenon. At some age, the filters go bye-bye.
There we go.
At some age, the filters just go, see you later, alligator.
Well, okay, my filter's down. I'm going to tell you this, Matt. I am excited about your new book here. Start at the end. How to build products that create change. My filter's gone. See, it's shameless homerism at this point. Can you share with the listeners about this new book and what inspired you to write this thing?
Yeah, so I have been obsessed with these problems of behavior change, and I believe very passionately. I dropped out of a PhD program. I believe very passionately that everyone has the ability to be a behavioral scientist, and more importantly, that we will build a better world if people do. If all of us learn how to change behavior, we all can collectively hack on some of our biggest problems. You talk about Facebook, right? Like, Facebook has been very, very good at reprogramming people's behavior. If we want to, sort of, I don't know if I want to say the word fight that. Let's fight. Let's fight. If we want to fight with Facebook, right? Like, we have to learn the ninja arts, right? Like, they've got a lot of money and a lot of people who are programming our behavior. If we want to fight back, we need to be able to learn the same science. And so I wanted to write a very accessible book that anybody could read and understand, hey, this is how behavior gets changed, and this is how I can sort of start to change behavior. And whether that's my behavior or the behavior of others, I sort of leave it open-ended.
Matt, there is a notable quotable from Albert Einstein that he explains that if you can't explain something in a simple way, you really don't know it. It says I'm paraphrasing here, but he talks about how if you can't communicate a complex idea in a simple way that simple minds like mine could understand, you really aren't a good communicator. And I think you're really good at breaking down things in a very easy to understand way. But for the listeners out there that haven't downloaded your book yet or bought the book yet, can you walk us through what kind of nuggets of knowledge are we going to find? Just give us a few teasers. What are we going to find inside the hotness of your new book?
Well, let's start with the title. Let's start at the end, right? I think one of the key things, the first mistake that we all make is we fall in love with interventions, not outcomes. And so what that means is, it's like an episode of Mad Men, right? We fall in love with the commercial and not with what the commercial is supposed to get us to actually do in the world. So when we want to change behavior, we have to start with a clear articulation of what the world looks like when we're successful. What does it look like when people are actually doing the thing we want them to do, right? So that's sort of step one, and that's, I think, the biggest takeaway from the book. The second piece is, if we know what the world we want is, right, like from the sci-fi sort of way, we know the alternative reality we're trying to get to, well, we have to describe our current reality. We have to say, what does behavior look like now and why, right? Why would people ever want to do something different, and why aren't they already doing something different? And when we have in our minds the world that we want and the world that we have, then we can start to build bridges in between. We can start to say, well, if I understand why people behave the way they do now, I can change the pressures that create that behavior to get me to this new world. So it's really, in some ways, a book about sci-fi, right? It's about alternative traveling to the alternative universes that we want to live in, where people eat healthy or exercise or have more money or are more responsible or whatever it is we're trying to get to. It's about, it's not time travel. It's alternate dimension travel.
I'd like you to beam up our listeners to a higher level of intelligence. We went aboard the Star Trek Enterprise that is Matt's brain, okay? Albert Einstein said, the definition of genius is taking the complex and making it simple. Simple. So I want you to help us understand this idea. I've had a client, and I don't expect you to do a whole bunch of research into Dr. Z and I, but I had a client I worked with Z for years who came into our meeting about 2 months ago, and he says, Clay, I'm depressed.
Uh-oh.
And I said, why are you depressed? He says, I'm rich now, and I don't have to work. And I'm like, wasn't that the goal? Time freedom? And he's like, no, I'm just bored as crap. I got to do something with my life, man. Yeah. So he didn't define what he wanted to start. He always told me I want to get rich and have time freedom. I've worked with the guy for about 7 years now. He comes into the meeting just looking all like worn out, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what's going on? He goes, I literally have nothing to do. It's just easy. It just comes in. The money comes in. My staff, I got good managers. There's no problems. I just kind of was addicted to that, fixing problems. And he was
Sure.
And I'm going, well, dude, you got to recalibrate, baby. Talk to us about where most people get it wrong when it comes to not starting at the end.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and that work example resonates with me, right? So I always joke that if I had a tattoo, there's this beautiful Theodore Roosevelt quote I love: far and away the best prize that life has to offer is the chance to work hard at work worth doing, right? His wife dies, and, he writes in his journal, today the light went out of my life, right? It was just crushing to him. And what did he do? Well, he went to work. He started the first modern police force here in New York City, right? He sort of got engaged in the world, and that's what I think work has saved so many of us by providing that purpose. And when we lose that purpose, man, it's really destructive. So I think, to your point, knowing the outcome that you actually want, if your friend had envisioned the world that as it exists for him now, you jet around, you don't really do anything, you provide no value. He could have seen in advance that was not going to be a desirable outcome.
Yeah.
But he never really thought about it. He just thought about the process. He just thought, I make money. The process is make money. I do the process that is make money, and then I arrive at some outcome. But he didn't envision that outcome. He didn't say, here's the behavior. Like, literally, if we had talked to your friend, if we go back in time, we go back, you said you were working 7 years, 10 years. We go back 10 years.
Yep.
We go to your friend and we say, just tell me what you're going to do when you're rich. On a day-to-day basis, what are you going to do? Right? Very quickly, as he described it, he would realize it's actually incredibly boring. Right? I sort of get up and someone's already made my stuff for me, and I, sort of.
They've ironed my paper and.
No, Matt, this is an interesting thing. A buddy of mine years ago, he said, after you sold the DJ business, what'd you do? And I said, well, I said yes to certain speaking events because I always thought I'd want to do that. And after I got on, I don't know, 12 planes, 20 planes, 30 planes, 40 planes, lugged my books around, sold my books, bought my books, sold my books, bought my books, wrote the books. I realized for me, I'm happiest when recording a daily podcast and interacting with real clients face-to-face, more so than people I meet one time at speaking events. I just like the richness of working with someone ongoing more than the touch and go. And I'm just fascinated by this concept in your book. And in your book, you talk about how smokers, how companies can now you're seeing a decline in smoking because the ads now are depicting smoking as no longer a cool thing. And you talk about Joe Camel. And can you talk to us about this, how we can change people's behavior as it relates to smoking by reframing how we brand it?
Yeah, 100%. So I was talking, I talk a little bit in the book about, a lot in the book about competing pressures, right? The notion that our behaviors are defined by competitive pressures, promoting pressures, things that make a behavior more likely, and inhibiting pressures, things that make a behavior less likely. And, when we try and eliminate a behavior, we naturally gravitate towards inhibiting pressures. So that's what we did with smoking, right? The first 20, 30, 40, 50 years of smoking policy is about inhibiting pressures. We're going to make them expensive. We're going to add taxes. We're going to make them hard to get, right? You have to be old enough. We're going to keep them behind the counter. I recently was in the Netherlands to give a talk, and they have one of those, they had one of those machines. You could walk up and get cigarettes. You remember those? You just go in a bar and you put some money in, you pull a knob, and you got cigarettes. Can you imagine that now, right?
Easier to get.
That long ago.
Yeah.
So we piled on all these inhibiting pressures, and we eliminated a lot of smoking behavior that way. But where we really got good at eliminating smoking behavior was we eliminated the promoting pressures, right? When it stopped being cool in the first place. Because for anyone that's ever had a drag of a cigarette, your first puff of a cigarette is awful. It is not a pleasant.
That's why you got to keep trying. You got to keep pushing yourself to get that addiction going there. I've been trying to start smoking for weeks.
It's challenging.
It's just one puff. You're like, oh, this is really. But when that girl or guy that you like is doing it, and it's an opportunity to take them outside. I mean, I think this is why you see the rise of e-cigarettes, right? Because we put in place all these inhibiting pressures on cigarettes, but we didn't eliminate the reason that people want to do the behavior in the first place, which is there's very few better ways to say, why don't we get out of this crowded place and step outside where we can be alone? Then, hey, you want to go outside?
Hey, you want to go outside and smoke a little bit?
No, you got to do it like this. Hey,
Matt, you want to go outside? I got to show you my stoma. Let me show you my stoma. Sorry.
Step outside, honey.
We got lost in the excitement
Sorry.
there of smoking. Sorry about that.
I can understand. I mean, it is like fighting smoking is, I think, one of the battles I would love to have been in on. And now we're sort of figuring out, like, what are we going to do about e-cigarettes is a battle that I think I want to be in on. I mean, I think that's a fascinating.
Are e-cigarettes? Tell me about the data. E-cigarettes, are they worse than smoking? What does the early data say? Is it worse than traditional cigarettes? Better? Worse?
Look, you got to talk to a medical doctor and not me.
Okay.
But what I would tell you is, at least in the UK, what they've sort of said, and I think it's pretty accepted at this point, is they are certainly less bad than cigarettes, right?
Well, because cigarettes put so many other.
Worse than not doing it.
Right.
They're less bad than cigarettes. They're worse than not doing it at all. So what the language that people have become comfortable with is they are a harm reduction device, which I think is a lovely branding right there. Harm reduction device, meaning, well, they won't kill you as fast as cigarettes will.
There you go. But I mean, because cigarettes put so many of the things in the cigarettes. That's what's so confusing. It's kind of like I got like all these different stuff they put in there. It's crazy. I mean, a cigarette's just not tobacco rolled up in a little paper thing. So.
Well, okay. Now that we've killed my dream of promoting cigarettes, we've killed that. I mean, Matt, do you have any other comments about smoking before I interrogate you more about this book? 'Cause I really, you and I had a dream for a while. We were like, you and I are going to team up, and we're going to bring back, like, instead of Joe Campbell, it'll be like Joe Camel. It'll be like the Penguin.
Yeah, we're going to have Justin Timberlake do our song for us. I'm bringing smoking back.
We had a whole book called Smoke Your Way to Thin.
I don't know how to hack.
The book Smoke Your Way to Thin was taught you how to lose weight by smoking, and it just said you'll also save money on living because you'll be dead soon.
Yeah, exactly. So
absolutely.
Don't worry about savings.
Diet than death.
Right, exactly. And you don't have to worry about savings because you ain't going to see it. Come on now.
There we go. Okay, so Matt, tell us more about this beautiful book. There's some listeners out there, me specifically right now. Andrew's got the trigger button on Amazon right now. He's got Amazon pulled up right now, and at any moment he could just buy the book with a click of a button, and he's going to drop.
Got a lot of power in that click.
I mean, he could buy the book right now, and Andrew, if you spend that $20, I mean, we don't want to waste that $20. So tell us why we should buy the book. Start at the end.
It's not even $20.
I'm looking at it right now. How much is it?
The hard copy is, I think, $17.
$17 for the hard copy? Oh, get the hard copy. Yeah. Get the hard copy.
Audiobook. Are you?
Well,
is it your voice, Matt? Is it your lovely voice?
This is a radio show. We have to be clear. If you're going to get a copy, get the Audible version because the book is filled with cursing, and I did the Audible version. So you get authentic Matt Wallaert cursing in the book if you buy the audio version.
That's awesome. I was going to ask if you did it. Did you did it? That's incredible.
What?
That's
funny.
That's a bargain at twice the price. I'm just telling you right now, folks.
That's a bargain. What else is in this book, Matt? Give us a good sales pitch. We're ready.
I mean, what better superpower have you ever wanted, right? Like the ability to change behavior.
Oh, wow.
That is the ultimate. That is the ultimate superpower, right? That is the best, most fun thing. Who among us has not wished they could change the behavior of others? And all of us have that capability. All of us. It is simultaneously incredibly powerful and incredibly accessible. Everyone can be a behavioral scientist because if behavior is your outcome and science is your process, you can become a behavioral scientist. That is, I think, that's such an amazing permissioning thing for us.
Can I ask you if we have time? Do you have a few more minutes? Do you have a few more minutes?
Yeah, let's talk.
Okay, so this is the question I have. Let's say, because everyone who listens to our show is a small business owner, Z. Everybody, and just so you know, Matt, Z and I, we built 13 multi-million-dollar companies. He's 54. I am 38. He has 3 kids. I have 5 kids. He's an optometrist. He's an auto auction guy. He's invested in a bank, a lot of successful companies. I've invested in my own businesses. So we relate to this. Our audience relates to this. But, Z, people always ask, they say, how can I get the chronically late super talent to be on time? The super talented guy.
Super talented.
The best sales guy in the world. The best saleswoman ever. The most talented graphic designer who's great at everything. They just cannot seem to be on time. Matt, help us change the behavior of chronically late people.
I'm ready. So first 2 things, because I have to be productive, I have to say, why do they need to be on time anyway? Right? Is that really the behavior you care about? If this is your best person, right? This is where you get behavioral goals wrong, right? You're like, the behavior I care about is you being on time. Why? Right? If they are the single best employee you have and they outperform everyone else and their behaviors are doing that, do you really care if they're on time? So I'll give you that challenge. But let's assume that is, in fact, your behavioral goal. So the thing that I think people reliably get wrong is they never say, why is this person wrong late in the first place? right? They always go to the inhibiting pressures. How do I punish them for being late? What new and creative punishment can I instill for them being late? I will rack them. I will force them to listen to Bon Jovi on repeat.
Whoa,
like I will do all of these things, right?
Whoa.
Wait, are we gonna argue about Bon Jovi?
I love Bon Jovi, and I just feel like
we need to change his.
Johnny works a 9 to 5.
Oh, cowbell.
Bring home the bacon. So tough. Because we got to. See, let's do. Because we got to hold on to what we got. Oh, doesn't seem to matter if we make it or not.
And you can't change my mind with all your little scary science stuff. Oh, wait, I did the wrong words.
You might not need to be on time. Whoa!
I'm gonna be late. Whoa!
Yeah, sorry, lost my mind there.
I was out on a date. Whoa!
So you want to go smoke outside? I'm looking for. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Back to you and Bon Jovi.
I also like Bon Jovi, but if you listen to that enough times, you too will go crazy.
You'll start smoking.
Well, maybe that's why all the rockers start smoking. They have to hear their own music.
Hold on.
Like, I've heard this song so many times.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I mean, and there are songs about that, right? Like, Wanted, Dead or Alive is basically about being really sick of touring. Let's be clear.
Dead or alive. Sorry. Back to you.
Sorry.
We're never going to actually do this interview. We're just going to sing badly to each other.
I need a cigarette. It's been a long time.
Okay, back to you.
So back to you. Go ahead.
So the thing that I actually have experience with this. So I was working with Airline Unnamed, and they have a huge problem. Because,
I've never heard of that airline.
If flight attendants don't show up, right, there are these laws that you can't just like bring over the old crew because there's a limited amount of time consecutively they're allowed to fly. And so if somebody doesn't show up, it can literally ground a flight because you can't get another flight attendant because you have to find somebody who's permissible.
Now,
Matt,
huge problem. Matt, I don't want to interrupt. I don't want to interrupt, but we have a lot of older people that listen to us, and the fact that the crew is older, and the fact that they've been doing it for a long time, I think that referring to a crew as an old crew might be a little offensive. A little offensive to some people. I think grandmothers make fine flight attendants.
Would you prefer the industry term, which is stale? They are a stale crew.
Oh, yeah.
Well, here again. Now you're just going from one.
He's so mean. He's talking about facts.
Mean. Why do we always get the mean guys on?
Okay, back to you.
Okay,
sorry. We promise we will not interject any singing or any thoughts at all.
You can just throw whoever you want underneath the bus, and we'll just beep, and we'll just be fine. So go ahead.
I'm muting our
the stale crew. So they had put in place every barrier that they could think of, every sort of punishment that they could think of to get people to show up for their flights. And so I said, well, why are they missing their flights in the first place? And they said, we have no idea, right? We've never actually looked at why they're late in the first place. We just know that they don't show up. And I said, well, let's go look. And so we went and looked, and here's the number one. Can you guess? I bet you smart guys, what is the number one reason a flight attendant is unlikely to show up to their flight? They have to cancel at the last minute.
Okay, let me get. You're going to let us guess, right? Mine is transportation back to the airport. That would be my number one guess.
Yeah, I would say traffic or transportation related to some sort of traffic situation.
Anyway,
gentlemen, I am disappointed in you.
Oh,
I'm disappointed in you. What do you have between the two of you? Besides a number of successful businesses, you also have a number of successful something.
20. We have 20 fingers.
Very nice cab muscles. Very impressive.
Clay has the largest brain that's been recorded on a human.
It's a huge head. It's a kind of hollow head. That's all we got.
Well, we're not sure the size of the brain. We know the head. We know the head's big. We know the head's big.
How about children? You do have a lot of children.
Oh, cow.
We do have a lot of kids, yeah.
Yes.
And that, what will make you miss work? Sick child. So
that was the number one reason, huh?
Miss work last minute, sick kids.
Wow.
So this airline, I said, well, look, instead of punishing the heck out of people for not showing up, why don't you just, introduce a benefit where if they have a sick kid, you will send a vetted babysitter to take care of their kids so that they can make their flight. So they implemented this, and lo and behold, attendance went up massively because when someone reliable, professional, provided by the company would come and take care of your kid, yeah, great, I'm happy to show up and take this flight.
Well, that just seems too smart and clever.
That promoting pressure in the first place, and presto, behavior change.
Wow.
Z, this book sounds like a hot book.
He sounds like a smart guy.
He sounds like a smart guy.
I mean, he's offensive, but he sounds smart.
Hey, I would like, before we wrap up...
Stale. I'm stale.
Well,
It's stale.
before we let you get back to having a rational, thoughtful existence, doing what you do, I'd like for you to openly complain about songs, any song, any artist, anywhere you go. Any music artist, obviously Bon Jovi, not a big fan there. If there's any songs
I love Bon Jovi. Leave Bon Jovi alone.
You love Bon Jovi. Okay, so you love Bon Jovi. Okay, so who is a music artist where you say, this is my favorite artist, and who's an artist where you go, not so much, and why?
Well, I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan. For a lot of different reasons. And I think, I've talked about that extensively. It's in the book, I think, actually. Who do I not like? That's funny because
or a song in particular.
I try very hard not to think about the things that I do.
What about
very I just avoid it.
I'll play the game.
But
Meatloaf.
What I will say is modern overproduced country music really can get under my skin fast. So like a sort of Carrie Underwood kind of that
Whoa. That's our girl here. She's from Dakota right up the street.
All right. So if you're out there today and you like Bon Jovi, you believe in the power of, you want to change behaviors of people, you feel like maybe there's somebody in your office that needs a little behavior change. Maybe you need a behavior change. Maybe you want to change your life, change your mindset. I encourage you to check out this new book, Start at the End, How to Build Products That Create Change. The book has far less interruptions than we have on today's show.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
And that's very true. Well, I don't know. You haven't dropped any cuss words on the show, on the podcast. I don't mean on the radio show. So I don't know. I mean that might be kind of spice it up a little bit. I don't know.
I've been trying very hard to be restricted. No. This is definitely toned down from normal.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for being on the show. And I have one final question, and I'll let you get back to life. Here we go. Is there a belief that you have that is very controversial, that you believe it, and it's worked for you? It's a principle that has worked for you, or a belief, or a worldview, or some kind of mindset that you believe, and it's worked for you, that maybe the rest of the world doesn't share. I think you started to hit on it there for a minute. You were talking about how you just don't think about negative things ever. That's an interesting idea.
That's
cool. Dr. Z's like that. I'm like that as well. So is there a different mindset or a worldview that if you could just send a text message to everybody and say, world, do this, what would be that controversial belief you want to share?
Can I curse?
Yeah, absolutely.
A dummy-down version.
Yeah.
Automate. I think people, I'm a firm believer in automating things. I'll give you a great example. I have a little bot on eBay that buys the same clothes. I wear pretty much the same clothes every day, like blue jeans, Nordstrom trim fit shirt, John Reveda's blazer, cowboy boots every day, because I just don't care, right? Like, automate the stuff you don't care about. There's been this over-reliance in this country in particular, in the world, but particularly in this country, on everything has to be a unique expression of your identity. No, it doesn't. Right? The stuff I care about is a unique expression of my identity. Everything else, just automated.
Have you read the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F?
No, but it sounds like something I'd love.
It does sound like something
you'd love. It's a top-selling book over at you can find it at Target, Barnes & Noble. It's been a top seller, I think, for about 2 years now. And my literary agent represents that author. And that book is very similar to what you just said. It's a powerful idea when you realize that not everything has to matter. I mean, you can just wear blue jeans and wear the same thing every day. Steve Jobs wore the same thing every day. Zuckerberg did it. Obama did it during his second term. Yeah, Zuckerberg.
Edison did it.
Edison did it, yeah.
I had this vivid experience in my late 20s where I had long hair and I shaved my head, and I never really went back. I was like, I didn't realize how much of my brain was worried about how my hair looked every day. And worried about making sure that I showed up to a meeting looking professional, whether I shaved it all off, and I'm like, nope, I'm doing this forever because I have so much more brain power when I'm not worried about my hair.
That's true, though. Seriously, I like that. I love the simplification. I love it. I wish we could interview you for days in a row. I know you wish we would be done interviewing you within seconds, so we'll kind of meet in the middle. We'll hang up so you don't have to hang up on us.
Passive aggressive.
Yeah, we'll just kind of just hang it up. You know what I mean? It'll be a deal where.
But can we? He's kind of cool. I kind of like him. Can we maybe have him on the show one other time?
Matt, would you want to be on the show again?
Let's do it again.
Oh,
let's do it again. We'll sing some Bon Jovi to each other. It'll be.
I like that. I like where you go.
Cash. You can sing a little Carrie Underwood.
Oh,
I like where your head is on this.
This is
Carrie Underwood. Come on.
We got a good momentum here.
Jesus, take the wheel. Come on now.
Now we've had Matt on the show. We've had the head of NASA on the show. We've had Wolfgang Puck on the show. We've had John Maxwell on the show. Guy Kawasaki on the show. None of them have talked about Bon Jovi this much.
None.
We haven't even talked about Bon Jovi at all, nor have we even sang Bon Jovi, or really do we sing very many songs at all. This was a unicorn show.
Today's been a very sing-along, friendly song.
It's a hot show.
It's a hot show. It's a hot take.
Matt.
And I love the way, though, he stood up for his guy. You kind of flew by you, I think, but he said, I think you said something disparaging about Bon Jovi, and he was like, are we going there? Is that? I mean, he was ready. I like a man that's going to stand up for his principles and things he likes.
I flirt with hyperbole and the Donald Trump apophysis. Those are my moves, where I gonna go back and forth over the line just to see what might or might not happen.
Oh, I see.
But I do like Bon Jovi because he's a Patriot fan. He's a Patriot fan.
Oh my gosh,
true story. All right, it's time to wrap up here. So, and what we do, Matt, is we like to end every show by saying boom. So literally, see, we'll role play real quick. I'm gonna go 3, 2, 1.
Boom.
That's how we do it. So are you prepared to bring a boom? Here we go. It's the best boom ever. Here we go.
Real quickly, before we wrap up, I just want to have one final thought on
that. Final thought.
If Clay does follow your move and shaves his head, it'll take him like half the day because his head is so big. I don't know that that's a move he can do. So Clay, I just want to say on air, you don't need to go there.
Oh man,
I'm just saying. So
it's unbelievable. I'll need a team of stylists. My head is the size of that thing that rotates behind.
It's all about divide and conquer. Dr. Z, you take one side, Clay will do the other side.
Well, there you go. Always the optimist. You just changed my behavior.
On the show, I'm sure you can have great synergy and sort of chemistry as you collectively shave Clay's head.
It's hard to argue with truth. I tell you, it's hard to argue. You can, but it's hard to. And
if you watch Joel Osteen live each Sunday, there's a big orb, a big globe that rotates behind him. And that was constructed.
Is that based on your head?
It's a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
It's like an 8-foot thing. It just rotates.
That had
very
smaller,
impressive.
sure.
Okay, let's go ahead and end the show with a boom. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, boom!
Sonic boom!
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Pull it through the paint, wiggling it. See? Wiggle it. Start with just touching the canvas. Use just the corner of the brush. Just the corner. And begin pushing, making the bristles bend slightly downward. See that? Look at that. Isn't that a nice little tree? And he lives right here in this brush. All you have to do is sort of push him out.